Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldavar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek Podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek Podcast.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek Podcast. I'm your host Rory, and joining me are co-hosts Graham.
Hello.
And Maureen.
Hi there.
And also joining us today is a very special guest. We have actor John Leeson, who voiced K9 in Doctor Who and the Sarah Jane Adventures. So how are you doing today, John?
I'm doing very well, thank you kindly.
It's a pleasure to have you join us on the podcast. We're all big fans of K9.
Oh dear. Archive material, I think.
Yeah, but it's great to have you join us, definitely. So getting right into the questions, my first question for you is, how did you decide you wanted to become an actor?
Well, I think, quite honestly, I was an actor from childhood. I didn't have to make the decision to become an actor. In fact, it seemed an absolutely natural course for me to take in later life. I was quite good at running away. That was my problem, running away from the realities of life as they were into possibly fantasy worlds, who knows? But eventually I had to harden up a little bit, and so I auditioned to join a drama school, RADA, as it happened to be, arguably the top one in the country. And surprise, surprise, they accepted me as a student. And there I was for 2 years. Wonderful.
That's very cool, very nice. My second question, which do you prefer, on-camera acting or voice acting?
Oh, the answer is yes. No, I'm being cheeky. Voice acting is something that sort of came as part and parcel of the sort of acting work I do. Most of my career has been visible. Theatre work all over the country, West End productions. I spent 3 years in the West End playing different things in different plays. Then a lot of sitcoms, BBC sitcoms in the 1970s and 80s. Dad's Army, Take Three Girls, My Wife Next Door, all sorts of things like that, which were quite interesting because you actually played before a studio audience. So there was still a little bit of theatre involved. And yet at the same time, down the lens of the studio cameras, you were also playing to the world at large, which was a sort of bridge you had to cross. It was a hybrid situation to be in a strange sort of way.
That's very interesting, yeah. And I actually did notice on your credits that you were in Dad's Army, which is very interesting because I've been a fan of that show for a long time and only realized when you initially agreed to be on the podcast. Like, I looked up your full list of credits and I was like, wow, he was in an episode of Dad's Army. I didn't know that.
Well,
No.
you do.
Yeah, you learn something new every day.
Sons of the Sea is the episode in question. And you'll see me there. There's a lovely little story attached to that because I was called in initially to the makeup and hair department before we began shooting. And I was given, of course, as I was playing a soldier, a squaddy, I was given the #1 army haircut, which was quite fierce. You know, I had hardly any hair left, and I'd only recently been married, and I think my wife was a little bit alarmed that she'd got nothing to get hold of. But there we are. That's another matter altogether. However, a fortnight later, I was called in to get fitted for a costume. And the costume included, to my great disgust, a woolly balaclava helmet, a knitted balaclava helmet, which meant that all you could see of my face excluded my hair. Nobody could have seen my hair anyway. So the military haircut was quite unnecessary.
Yeah, that is a bit ridiculous. That you have to, cut your hair and yet it didn't really matter in the end. They won't see it. That is very interesting. I'm actually glad you told us that. That is one strange story. That's for sure. Yeah. So my first question is, how did you first get involved with Doctor Who?
Well, this was an accident. It really was. Because years back, I had worked in repertory theatre all over the country. And there was one director I worked with particularly, a chap called Derek Goodwin. Very nice guy, lovely guy. And I met him entirely by accident when I went down to my local pub, just down the road from me. And who was there but Derek Goodwin? He said, "Oh, John, mate, lovely to see you. What are you doing?" So I said, "What are you doing here? I didn't expect to see you." And he said, "Well, I'm actually directing a Z-Cars." It shows how long ago it was. "I'm directing a Z-Cars round here. Listen, are you doing anything work-wise?" So I said, "Well, no, I'm not at the moment." He said, "Well, stand by your phone, because in a couple of weeks' time, maybe you'll hear something from the BBC." So I did, I waited, and the phone eventually rang from my agent. And my agent said, "Well, John, I've just heard the BBC want you to play not one, but 2 parts in Doctor Who. What do you think?" So I thought, wow, my goodness me, this meeting with Derek was wonderful. I was quite astonished. He said, but this is the thing. One of the parts is the voice of a virus. Tiny part, I thought. Tiny, minuscule part. You could hardly see it. And the other part is the voice of a robot dog. What do you think? Mind you, he said, it's only in for one storyline, so you just have to go with the flow, really, don't you? So I said, "Well, I'll take it on." So I did, and here we are in 2014, and lo and behold, I'm still voicing K9 from time to time. Just done another big finish thing this very week. So there you are.
That's very interesting. Very great story. My fourth question, what were some of your favorite episodes to work on for Doctor Who?
Well, the best episode, the most engaging episode I remember in the classic series was a story called The Sunmakers, which was written by Robert Holmes, a lovely writer. And The Sunmakers was basically a story that took to pieces the tax system on one of the planets that there had been. Obviously, Robert Holmes must have been having some tax problems himself. I don't know. I can't speak for him, obviously, but he was poking fun at the way people got taxed for things. And it was a jolly story, and I enjoyed doing that very, very much indeed.
It's very interesting. My final question for you, John. Do you have any upcoming acting roles or other projects you like to talk about?
Well, I haven't got any sort of visible acting roles to come, as far as I know, unless any of your listeners are producers or directors and want to cast me in something. But I've got some more Big Finish stuff to do. And it's quite interesting nowadays because when I do Big Finish stuff, it's almost like whizzing back across the years, 30, 40 years, when I started working with Tom Baker and Louise Jameson and Lalla Ward and people like that, because we are still churning the stuff out. It is absolutely amazing. So I've got some more of that awaiting me in the next week or two, which is lovely.
Definitely, that sounds really great. So, thank you very much, John, for answering all of my questions. I'll let my co-host Graham ask his.
Yes, indeed. Graham, hello.
Hello, how are you? Sorry, you're going to be here for quite a while. Well,
Okay.
for starters, in my opinion, K9 has been stamped as one of the most iconic and memorable characters in Doctor Who. So, how does it feel knowing that you'll be branded onto the franchise and that everyone will automatically know who you are, pretty much till, no pun intended, the end of time?
Well, it's quite interesting because not everybody knows what I look like.
No?
I
It's
keep
not after
going.
the weakest link thing, surely.
Oh, yes, I know. But I keep going to these conventions and things, Doctor Who conventions or sort of multifaceted conventions. And I will sit there and there'll be a big picture of K9 behind me, and I'll be signing autographs. But when kids come by, they don't know me from Adam. Why should
They're
they?
just like expecting the robot dog to be at the table.
No. So I just do a little, a tiny bit of the canine voice, and you should see the expression on their faces. It is absolutely amazing. And that is the sort of reward that I simply can't put in the bank. That is just wonderful,
Hmm.
absolutely wonderful. So I feel, very warm about all that.
Yeah, well, as you would be. I mean, especially at conventions, you see all the generations of those who've been watching the show in general, and like the awe of it all, as one singularity. But do you have any favorite episode of Doctor Who, whether you were in it or not?
Not particularly, because I mean, I have to make a confession that I'm not. I mean, as a sort of rank and file, ordinary stand-up actor, I'm not actually a sci-fi fan as such. You will get cast. As I say, I got cast accidentally to play K9, which was a wonderful thing to do because you could go anywhere, do anything.
Hmm.
But no, I don't think I have. I mean, any episode that comes up, and if there's something positive that K9 can be found doing in it, that's wonderful. I mean, what sort of reward is that? It's fantastic. It really
Of
is.
course, yeah. Like not every actor that works in sci-fi has to love sci-fi in order to be part of it, surely. So, but do you have a particular favorite line or moment that included your character, or like not even in Doctor Who, but in any sort of work that you've done?
Oh, absolutely. I think with Doctor Who, I can't remember the storyline, but somebody made some silly comment to Doctor Who, to K9 rather, and I simply said, "Your silliness is noted," which is
I think
quite.
that was I think that was one of the classics. All right.
Gone.
I'm sure I remember the line. And anyway,
Yeah. Well, there you go. But you have to remember that sometimes it posed problems for writers writing for K9 who hadn't had any experience of the character at all. And if K9 was ever asked any direct question by the doctor or the assistant or whoever it happened to be, he would have to answer it directly. And equally, he would probably answer it directly and then go into an extraordinary amount of explanation as behind the question, which often the occasion for the doctor or the assistant to say, "Oh, shut up, K9," which is quite a good idea because he's a great know-it-all.
It's the
Yeah.
ultimate know-it-all. I mean, it's a robot dog with once you give a dog a brain, like a brain that enables him to speak, that kind of gives him an excuse.
Well, it's not even a dog, you see. This is the thing. He is absolutely a robot. And some writers made him more dog-like than others. And I would say, no, 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 no. Pull back from that because he is actually a robot. He
At the
just
end of the day,
happens incidentally to be dog-shaped.
Well, in terms of your acting training, you went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, or as you mentioned, RADA, one of the best acting schools on the globe, in my opinion. Do you feel like your professional training played a big part in where you are today?
Well, I do. It's interesting. I was talking to Louise Jameson the other day, and we were talking about classical training in a drama school and experience of working in the theatre in early days. And yes, indeed, if you're playing Shakespeare and the classics, that equips you, as Louise rightly said, that would equip you to play in soap operas, in TV soaps and things like that. But if you've gone into the profession playing simply TV soaps, that wouldn't equip you for playing the classics. So, in fact, you have to have the experience of a classical background in order to fulfill all sorts of other things. I mean, that even applies to voice work. There is a sort of trampoline on which you bounce as a voice actor. I'm not really a voice actor, I'm just an actor. But that's a trampoline on which you bounce, and that gives you the size and the shape. You see, the thing about actors, the key to actors is their ability to listen, to be still, to actually be actively still. You think of some really great telly actors. I'm just thinking of John Thor, who played Morse, for example. Being absolutely apparently doing nothing, but thinking, being in character all the time, all the moments. And that is something that is instantly attractive. I remember too that Tom Baker, with whom I worked originally as my doctor, he always used to say to the cameraman, "How big am I in frame? How much of me are you seeing? How much can I afford to be extravagant in my gestures?" Because if you're actually in mid close-up or big close-up, you should, in fact, be doing pretty well nothing. All the audience wants to see is what's going on behind your eyes, what you're thinking inside your head, how you're dealing with the situation that you're in. Technique.
Well, that was in-depth. Thank you very much. Also, throughout your work, do you have any particular methods that you use to get into character still to the day? If so, do you mind telling me a few of them?
No, there aren't any. I mean, as far as characters are concerned, nowadays I just slip into playing K9 relatively automatically.
It's almost like just like opening up a file in Camden. Oh, so it's K9 today. Just use that.
Yeah, today it's Thursday, so I've been asked to be K9, so I am K9. Here you are. Yeah, that's how it goes. But you are true to the script, and you're true to the character you play. You play your line, whatever it is. You could be playing anything from Sherlock Holmes to a tramp in the street, but whatever, you play your line.
Of course, yeah. I have to say, you've been very, very interesting to talk to. That's all my questions. So I'm going to pass you on to my good friend Maureen now, who has a few for you.
Maureen, right. What have you... Hello.
So my first question is, how did you decide on K9's distinctive voice?
Well, I was asked originally if I could provide a voice that sounded as if it came out of a tiny little transistor radio. You know, I got all this information behind me, a huge world of facts. You know, it's rather like the internet out of a tiny little elliptical speaker. So I've just simply pitched the voice up a couple of octaves and made it sound very robotic. And that was the result, mistress. So there you go.
That's
Originally, the sound technicians, when I was first doing it on the first story, The Invisible Enemy, they tweaked my voice track a little bit and made it sound a little bit tinnier than it actually was. But then they realized that the actor was doing it for himself. So they took all their toys away.
oh, that's just anytime I hear that voice, it's kind of like it's definitely just a childhood just comes flooding back to you because I it's such a great voice. I think it's spectacular. So my second question is, did you know when you got the part how popular K9 would be?
No idea whatsoever. It was only in as for one story, as I say. And in fact, they kept the end of the story open during the course of the recordings because they thought, well, they've obviously BBC had spent quite a bit of money in making the physical module of K9. And they thought there might be some mileage in it. But I didn't know this. I'm always the last to know how K9 is going to be worked or, you know, whether he's going to be included in anything. And so I was quite surprised at the end of the day to hear that K9 was going to have a continuing life. And there we go. And here I am today.
That's it's really cool.
Echo.
Yeah, I just got an echo of my own voice. It's a bit strange.
Quite right. Oh, you deserve it. I promise you.
My last question for you is, as a theatre trained actor, was there a difficult transition into the part of K9 from, you know, theatre so physical and it's all about gesture and you're playing to an audience that can be quite far away to suddenly being in a small booth with a microphone?
I think I've probably touched on this before. You know, you're actually conveying an inner truth. Now, on screen, yes, you're not working in real time as you are in the theatre. In the theatre, it's WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. But in film and television, it's what the editor, the film editor, or the television editor chooses to let you see. So, in a sense, you are still within your character, but you know that you have to do less because you don't have to fill an auditorium. You know, you are as close to the audience as the camera lens is to you. So you have to remember that as an actor, certainly. Does that answer your question?
It does indeed. I've always kind of wondered when I've seen, you know, big theatre actors go from theatre to screen. It's always been something in the back of my mind. So thanks very much for answering my questions. I think, Rory, we have a couple from the Facebook page that people want to ask.
Yeah, we do have a couple of Facebook questions for you. From Gab, one of our other co-hosts who couldn't make it today. His first question is, seeing as you voiced K9 since his first appearance, how did you feel when you heard that you'd be reprising them again in the David Tennant episodes?
Well, I was delighted, absolutely delighted. It was tremendous because I didn't realize at the time that David himself was a great fan of K9. But of course, now you see me, or you see K9 running around rather in the school reunion story with David Tennant. But as far as I was concerned, I never met David Tennant until a convention quite some time later, because I had pre-recorded the canine voice in a sound studio somewhere, because as far as the BBC was concerned, that was a greater cheaper option than actually having me attend the studios.
Very interesting. Especially that you know, had to meet David at a convention after that. I think that's pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And his other question is, what other creature from Doctor Who would you have liked to voice?
Well, I have voiced various creatures. I've voiced sort of Daleks from time to time. As far as Big Finish is concerned, I've reprised the character of the, what is it? The swarm, something to do with the swarm in Invisible Enemy. The nucleus, that's right, the nucleus of the swarm. I've done that. I've done all sorts of different voices, which I can probably not remember now, but there you go. And Big Finish is very, very good to me because they allow me to play other characters as well. So, you know, I feel fully functional as an actor working with them. And of course, working purely as a voice actor with them, you know, the world is your oyster. You can
One or the other.
go anywhere, do anything.
Yeah, very nice. So yeah, that's all of our questions for you, John. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Great stuff. Well, it's been very nice talking to you. So there we are. And good luck. Keep taking the tablets.
Thank you so much. So hopefully we'll talk to you again at some point.
Shut up, K9.
Bye-bye now.
Bye. Now that was an interview. Yeah.
K9.
No, Moen, you tried to do his voice and it didn't work.
That was Graham.
That was actually me. That was actually from the TV shows. It was from
I swear I heard Maureen say something and then Graham add in as well.
No, that was just my overall joy of being able to interview K9.
Well, I thought it sounded like you were trying to imitate him.
No,
Anyway, yeah.
of course not.
So yeah, make sure to check out our YouTube channels. The podcast is www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Mine is www.youtube.com